Sure, you may have tuned into today's podcast not expecting to hear from me, Dan, but you weren't so lucky. You're still stuck with me for 90 seconds. Neil and Erik are coming up here in just a moment, but I wanted to remind everybody before we even get into the intro music that the draft guide from hoop-ball.com comes out first thing on Friday morning. That is less than a day away. In fact, as of the time this podcast is going live, it is 14 hours away. $13.99 is the draft guide price. 14 hours is the time. Maybe I should have just gone with a $13.99 theme there. $13.99, once again, the draft guide price just for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday only. It's the only time, coupons or no coupons, you'll be able to get the draft guide for $13.99. Go to hoop-ball.com if you want to learn more. The best way, though, to make sure you get all the deals available when they are available is to follow at Hoopball Fantasy, HOOPBALL Fantasy, all one word. That's the Twitter handle. We'll be tweeting out links to our draft guide landing page, which also will have deals for the Pro Package, the Champions Package, the Brewski 150 early release, and, of course, Game Time Premium. You may have known it last year as the premium membership. It's Game Time Premium now. That's all part of what's going on at Hoop Ball. And all of those things, the draft guide, of course, being the flagship item, go on sale Friday at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time. Okay, thanks for listening to me. I told you weren't going to have to check me out for 2 days. I lied. Enjoy the show.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today show, a Hoop Ball presentation for August 22nd, 2019. Dan Besbris is off enjoying the summer Thursday. My name is Neil Rochlani. I'll be hosting the show today. And back on after a bit of a hiatus, or not a hiatus, just I haven't had you on for a while, is Erik Ong, senior writer at Hoop Ball. Someone who I've learned a lot from reading about and also just chatting back and forth with about fantasy NBA basketball. Erik, how you doing today?
Hey there, Neil. Thank you for having me, first of all. A big shout out and hello to all the listeners out there. I'm glad to be back and excited to do this show.
Yeah, now we mentioned you are working on the Hoop Ball Draft Guide, which is released, I believe, Friday at midnight Pacific time. So do you want to say how many hours you've put in on that, or is that confidential too?
No, it's all right. It's like I don't really count, but it's a lot. It's a lot of work. I've chipped in a couple of articles here and there, and just before coming on this recording with you, I was busy working on some formatting and putting in some finishing touches to the draft guide, which I'm sure a lot of people are already excited to read. I've noticed that more and more people have been drafting earlier and earlier for some reason. I think I've shared with you just before we started this recording that I'm in one league that decided to draft in mid-July for some reason. It's just that they had the itch and just had to lock in their teams. We at the time when we drafted, Yahoo was still hadn't opened its fantasy basketball doors yet. We actually got together and did the draft online via a Facebook Messenger group, and it was a slow draft. We had something like a 12-hour per pick limit, and it was just a communal, repeating of the players drafted, etc. And some guy was just taking note of who were drafted and copy pasting the previous rounds, and that was a miss. Just think, for example, the poor guy who wanted to invest in DeMarcus Cousins who obviously should not be drafted in normal leagues, but the guy already took him.
Yeah, no, that's early. I'm having my main home league draft at the end of September, and I think that's too early. I like to go about 3 or 4 days before the start of the season. Have you? So your draft completed? Has anyone made any moves already, like free agent moves?
Well, the league was just inputted recently, and
Yeah.
I think free agency will open tomorrow night. So no moves have not been made yet, but I'm pretty sure, for example, the team that drafted DeMarcus Cousins will be dropping him as soon as possible to probably put on a waiver for some guy who was undrafted. So there were some interesting names who were left undrafted. I could just,
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you tell? Why
interesting.
don't you tell? Well, what,
It
how,
was
what,
just,
what big of league? How many teams were in the league?
oh yeah, all right. It's a 16 team league. There were I think 13 roster spots per team, so it is pretty deep. But ironically, here are a couple of names that stood out to me that were left undrafted. Um, guys like Bertans, Derek Rose, Podol, Marvin Williams for some reason was undrafted, and this is just a testament to how much Marvin Williams has been underrated throughout the years. I mean, we drafted over 200 players, um, and guys like Rodney Hood didn't make the cut. Dion Waiters, um, George Hill, and oh my gosh, Malik B. Okay, I am putting on. I hope they're not listening, but I'm going to put a waiver for Malik Beasley. He was undrafted. I don't know how he slipped through the cracks. I'm not sure. Who did I pick in the last round? I think I got Luke Kennard. So, would you rather have Luke Kennard or Malik Beasley?
Yikes. I think how many
Should I
how, how
drop
many how
Kennard?
many roster spots can you can keep? You start 10 players,
Yeah, something
uh,
like that. Wait, let me
so you have
let me just
13
put that
spots.
up. But that's
Yeah,
an interesting. This is a daily roster changes league.
yeah.
Um,
Wait,
yeah,
is it unlimited or is it game capped?
it's game. And no, it's unlimited because it's head to head,
Okay.
and we have 3 bench spots. Yeah, we're starting 10 players. We have 3 bench spots. The worst guy, at least my last pick was Luke Kennard. Um, I kind of like his upside. I know we were not supposed to talk about this, but I kind of have a crush on Luke Kennard this season as a nice.
Don't give away the whole draft guide here.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
No,
He's a
I'm just
personal
kidding.
crush. He's a personal crush that he he left a mark in my memory towards the end of last season because I owned him in one league and he was performing quite well. He was one of the guys who stepped up when Blake Griffin was sitting, and he was starting to score 18, 20 points a game on solid shooting. I think that he's going to be like a new Joe Harris kind of template, player, solid shooting percentages, threes, not much else outside of that. But at the end of drafts, that's the kind of player I want. Somebody who won't hurt me anywhere, but will shore up the often forgotten stat of threes. So he's a guy, but Malik Beasley is kind of tantalizing, actually. Going back, so we're a show. Let's give some advice. Give me advice, dude.
Yes, I will give you what I would do. I would take Kennard. At least I would draft Kennard and then see how it plays out. I have well. Usually, I usually end up dropping about my last 2 or 3 picks because waiver wires, tend to be pretty hot. But in a league that deep, there may not be that much out there. I would stick with Kennard. I would stick with him for the first month almost before I drop him.
I think so. And
Yeah,
I guess what stuck in my head when I did make that move was that Kennard's starting.
yeah,
Beasley isn't. And towards the end, Gary Harris was getting healthier. And if we're starting the season with a healthy Gary Harris, there won't be as much minutes for Beasley. And if everyone who's listening will recall, a lot of Beasley's value last season, and it's important to put these performances in context, was due to the fact that Gary Harris missed a ton of games and Beasley had to step up as he, started in Harris's place.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to see much of a role unless there's injuries. I mean, he may get some minutes just to give some guys rest, but I don't think he'll get a lot of value unless. I think Kennard has a potential to be a top 150 player. I think that's
Fair
safer.
enough. But
Yeah.
Beasley could be their he's
he
sixth
could.
man.
You never know.
I mean, I'd still just.
But
let me put this out there.
Yeah.
Because I think Beasley will perform on a per game value. Here's the segue for you.
Yes.
But on a per game value, better than Michael Porter Jr.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, I haven't even been thinking about him. Did he get drafted? Did he get drafted?
Yes, he did. I think so.
Yeah.
Because I think that Beasley has, first of all, earned his right to that sixth man role, and I think he's paid his dues. He's shown that he can step up and produce, at times on a good game, Jamal Murray-like numbers. When he does play well, he can hit those threes. He can score. He can, steal the ball every now and then and provide solid, standard league value. And he was one of the more interesting pickups in free agency in the fantasy game last season. But yeah, I think he'll do better than MPJ.
Well, let's segue away from Malik Beasley and Luke Kennard, because while interesting in deeper leagues, probably not going to be players most people have on their rosters this season at any time. If you play in thinner 10-team leagues or 12-team leagues. So, Eric, before we got on, actually, I gotta stop the press for a second. I gotta mention our sponsor, Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. For those of you who are newer to the show, they are our presenting sponsor. They produce delicious coffee products from the great state of Hawaii. You can find them on Amazon.com or directly on their website at HawaiianIsles.com, or HI Kona Coffee is their Twitter handle if you want to give them a follow. All right, so let's move to some bigger name players. And what I wanted to do with you today, as I mentioned right before we got recording this thing, we're going to go through the top players from last season on a per-game basis, 9 category. I'm looking at Basketball Monster for my point of reference. And I want you, Eric Ong, Hoopball's writer extraordinaire, fantasy. I mean, you're up there with Aaron Brewski in some circles. I want you to tell me if they're going to do better or worse or the exact same as last season.
Okay.
And then
sounds like a game.
Yes, I am going to also weigh
but
in.
But answer as well, right?
What's that?
You'll give your.
I'll give mine for sure. For sure. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So.
What are my official answers here? Higher, lower, and same.
Yeah, better, worse, or same. I guess I would.
Better, worse, or same.
Yeah, because higher, lower sometimes can be confusing with numbers.
All right, better, worse, or same.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
better, worse, or the same. And when I say same, I mean basically within. It doesn't have to be the exact same, but very hard to say whether they're better or worse. All right, so last year, number one player on 9 category leagues on a per game basis was James Harden. Runaway in 8 category leagues, 9 category leagues, squeaked it out on a per game basis. What are your thoughts? Will he finish number 1 again?
He will finish worse than number 1.
He will finish worse than number 1. And you're pretty confident about that?
Yeah, I think that the Russell Westbrook factor will play a role. I am just not... I cannot just quantify it into the impact that it'll make on Harden's stats, but I believe that there will be a negative impact somehow, as the usage is just mind-boggling, and I don't know how they're going to share that usage. So that's my short answer as why Harden will finish worse in 9 cat per game.
All right. Number 2 on a per game basis. This one's a little deceiving because he did not play that many games. But presumably he will this year as a Los Angeles Laker, and that was Anthony Davis. Number 2. Does he get the top spot? Does he fall? Does he stay about the same? What do you think?
He will perform better, and by that I am saying that Anthony Davis is going to be the number 1 player on a per game basis. Fantasy 9 cat, just being in the situation that he's in with the Lakers, considering how they weren't able to, grab as many extra role players to surround Davis and LeBron, plus the loss of our poor aforementioned DeMarcus Cousins. I think Davis is going to rock it out.
Are you at all worried about injury?
With Davis, yes, that's always a concern. But since we're talking about,
but you'll still you would take a number 1 if you had that pick.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's what I mean. How you're obviously not that concerned if you're going to take him number 1.
Well, we're talking about per game basis here, not total. So
but also I'm talking about I'm doing per game on a for the rankings. I'm talking about drafting next season for.
I'd still take him first. Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure because I want thoughts about drafting someone next season. This is trying to help people understand where you are at on that. All right, this one is going to be hard to not take worse, but maybe you'll say better. Number 3 last year was Paul George.
Worse. One word: shoulder.
yes, he's got to get worse, right?
Yep. And the fact that he is surrounded now with a lot more talent, especially on the offensive end, guys like Lou Williams, Harrell, obviously Kawhi, all of these guys are going to be able to take off a lot of the pressure that George had on his shoulders last season. He's going to be able to ideally, power things down a bit, share those load management minutes with Kawhi. And, clearly the Clippers are after a title. They're going to manage both guys, and there's no need to burn that candle too quickly early on.
I agree. There's no way he finishes 3rd again this year. Number 4 last year, again on a per game basis, was Steph Curry. Where do you see him this year?
Better.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's my number 1 guy, actually. He's my number 1 guy. I have Anthony Davis 2. Steph Curry 1. Who do you have Steph Curry 2nd?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
So we're just a guy apart.
We're just a guy. Although I think you could take either one, honestly.
I think it's easy to make a case for either player. I think that we're going to see a tug of war as far as that first ranking position in fantasy value between both guys are concerned. For obvious reasons, given the injuries that the Warriors are dealing with, Curry is going to have to carry them on his on his shoulders, and I can see him erupting for something like 6 threes a game for a good portion of the season, and that's just ridiculous right there.
Oh yeah, and he's going to score like 35. He's going to have like James Harden points next year. It's going to be crazy. All right, 5th last year goes to Karl Anthony Towns. Eric Ong, what do you think about this year?
Better.
Wow, this one. I would say he's going to finish 5th again. Big call. Do you think he's finishes 3rd? Is that where you have him?
I think he's going to finish 4th.
Okay.
Maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing with Towns is, first of all, he doesn't hurt you anywhere. And last season, because of the improvement in his blocks, he solidified his position as a top 5 asset, and I think he's still gonna make a reasonable but incremental step forward in terms of improving as a player, and we're gonna feel that in the stat sheet.
Yeah, I think he's a very safe 1st round pick. He may play the most games of any of the guys we mentioned so far. Number 6 last year per game basis was Giannis Antetokounmpo. This year, you think?
A little bit better, marginally better, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
So it's somewhere between better and the same. I
yeah.
see him as a top 5, top 6 guy. Um, until he addresses his concerns as far as free throw shooting is there. Obviously, turnovers will be an issue when it comes to Giannis, but he's a counting cats monster, and that's always juicy to see.
I totally agree. I think that free throw percentage keeps him out of the top 3 for sure. Maybe he falls a little bit, but I think 6 is pretty safe. Number 7 last year on a per game basis did not play that many games, or not a whole lot of games, but the ones that really mattered the most he did. That was Kawhi Leonard. Will he finish 7th? Do you think this year?
I think he'll finish a little bit worse on a per game basis.
Yeah. What about totals? Where do you think he might go?
Somewhere the same. I think his games will still be managed quite heavily.
Yeah.
I think the Clippers will take a page out of the playbook of what the Raptors did and try to duplicate, what they did, that formula, so to speak, that got them that first ever championship for Toronto. And I think it's a smart blueprint, and I think Kawhi can replicate it in LA for the Clippers.
Yeah, I think he played 60, I think, last year. I think he gets to 68 this year, something like that. I don't think he's going to rest all that, as much as he did last year, because I think the Clippers are going to be fighting for positioning out west. I think they're not a foregone best team out there. I think there's several teams that could be in the top 4 out there. So I think he's going to have to play more games, and I think he's safe. I don't know if I'd take him at 7, but I would take him certainly in the back half of the first round without thinking too much about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just because I think he's going to finish somewhere in that region. That doesn't mean that's where I'd take him.
Yeah.
I think he'll finish there, but I am, play in a lot of head-to-head leagues, and those missed games of his weigh him down as far as I'm concerned in my personal rankings. So I am, devaluing him on that merit, on that demerit.
Fair enough. I think my thinking is that although he will rest and be managed in that whole load management issue, I think a lot of top players are going to have that same thing. So I don't think the games played is going to be as different as we expect coming up. I think he might play maybe 4 or 5 fewer games than someone like Steph. We'll see. Number 8 last year we can skip. It was Kevin Durant. Number 9, Kyrie Irving. Now in Brooklyn. This is kind of hard to value because he's going to a brand new city, brand new organization, new players around him, new coach, all of that. How do you see him finishing this year?
A little bit worse. I think I'm still on the fence as to how he will gel with his new teammates. But like him, I do trust the organization. I think they've built a good culture. I think they have a good coach. I think Irving has an opportunity to thrive there. But that said, with Kevin Durant still not playing, I think Irving will suffer as far as turnovers are concerned. Mm-hmm. And that's going to probably drag down his 9-cat value a bit.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it fits in. I don't think I'd take him in the first round this year. I think I'd be a little hesitant. I'm also worried that, I don't think they're going to tank at the end of the season, but he may take some games off if it looks like they're not doing as well as they expected. Number 10, perhaps my favorite for MVP this coming season, Joel Embiid. What do you think about him?
He's going to be better than 10.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I have him a lot higher than that. He played 64 games. I think he's going to play a lot closer to 70 or just below 70. as a worst case scenario, barring any unforeseen injuries, um, the load management worked for him. He saw that it worked for Kawhi, and he sees the value in it. So I think he has a pretty well-rounded stat set, making him a fantasy darling. And the only thing that's been holding him back is that for a big man, he I think leads the league in turnovers among centers at 3.5 per game. If Embiid can, bring those down closer to the levels of Karl Anthony Towns, I think he will be able to narrow the gap between the two guys.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he finished ahead of Towns this year. He is getting better and better each year. Jimmy Butler's not there this year. It's his team. I don't think there's a question about that. So we'll see if the stat set can keep climbing. He's certainly getting better as a player every year. It's amazing to watch. Number 11 last year was Nikola Vucevic. This is probably an easy one for you.
Yeah, he's gonna finish worse. I think that was his. Pretty much, he flew as high as he possibly could, touch the sky, touch the sun. But I don't see him falling down to earth like Icarus did.
Yeah.
I think that he reached his peak, and he's still at an optimal situation for him to, at the very least, provide value within a close tier. So maybe he won't be a top 12 guy, but he's a shoo-in to finish within the top 20.
Oh, really?
Because I don't see.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not letting him slide past that, because if you look at it, the Magic didn't make any major changes. He's still their primary go-to guy, and despite the improvement we're expecting from guys like Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac, etc. It's Vucevic's team. And he's proven that given that he shoots well from the field and the line, and is pretty friendly from the turnover department, it gives you 1 steal, 1 3, 1 block per game. There's very little you can ask for, more you can ask for from Vooch. So yeah.
Yeah, he's probably a very safe late second round pick.
And
he probably will fall there. I don't think people are gonna draft him in the first round for sure, and probably not until later in the second round. He just doesn't have that buzz around him. So we'll see. We'll see how shrewd my home league is this year. All right, number 12, Damian Lillard, who seems to be like number 12 almost every season. What are your thoughts on him? Does he stay the same?
I think he'll finish better. I think he's worthy of to enter the top 10. I think he's a top 10 caliber guy. And when we're talking about the top 10, he's going to have maybe a 0.05, 0.04 increase in value overall per game. I think he's a solid and safe pick. He hardly misses any games. He's a safe bet to pick at the end of the first round if he does end up falling there.
Yeah, he's a great late first round pick. Very safe, probably the safest one out there at the end of the first round. Although this player, so we are now done with round 1 if you're playing 12 team leagues. We're now on team 13. Would you pair Lillard with last year's 13 pick, Nikola Jokic?
No, because I don't think Jokic deserves to fall this far. I think he will play far better than 13th.
Yeah.
Just for reference, I think he was picked somewhere in the top 6 in that 16-team league that I said already drafted.
Holy smokes! Who went out? Did Giannis go after him?
I don't remember. We'll make a date of it and break down those results. We'll just ask Dan's permission to cover it on the show. But yeah, I think Jokic. I don't think Jokic has peaked yet. I think we can still see more of a guy who, is a triple double threat, solid across the board. Um, who else does 2010 and 7 assists with solid shooting from both the field and the line? Those numbers are just too good to not take early in the draft. Probably a reason why he went that early is that league, despite being 16 team deep, has 2 center slots. So that could have played a role in that. The guy at that spot wanted, Jokic to be a key center and, fill that slot early.
All right, moving right along. 14th last year was Bradley Beal. He put it all out there last year on the court. I'm worried he can't sustain that effort on a bad Wizards team. What do you think about his ranking for this coming season?
I think he's going to be he's a shooting guard version of what you're looking at from Steph Curry. Okay? You love Steph Curry. You ranking him that high because he's going to carry the Warriors. I think Beal's going to be doing the same for the Wizards. While the Wizards probably won't finish as good as the Warriors, Beal's going to still leave it all on the line. And I think he's a superstar in that sense and deserves to be picked, late in the first instead of early second.
Oh, fair enough. I just worry that it's going to be more demoralizing this year for some reason. I know last year they were not good, but I worried he's going to be tired. Anyway, we'll see. I think you're right. The talent is there, and he will have the opportunity to do it again. Number 15, now with the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler. Last year, 15th overall per game basis. This year, what do you think?
Maybe slightly worse. I'm not sure. I was thinking about the move when the trade happened, and I'm having difficulty visualizing how he fits and whether or not he's going to clash with Coach Spoelstra. I don't know if he's going to suck it up and just be a follower because Butler has always, he's shown to be a very opinionated leader. And the Heat are simply run by Spoelstra, and it's a coach's team instead of an all-stars team. So it's a big question mark. With that being said, I'd rather expect him to do worse than he did last season.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this too. I think he's going to be the guy down there in Miami. Spoelstra knows how to handle big personalities. And I think it might work. And I think he might be right at the same level next year. I think I'm willing to be okay.
I think that's safe. That's still safe.
Yeah. 16, a bit of a surprise, at least on a per-game basis, did not play that many games last year, was Robert Covington. Has the stats set in the all-around game to be a top 30 player every year. But 16, can you repeat that?
No, I think, he played 35 games, and to me that's too small of a sample size. Those were excellent games, but I don't think he can sustain 2.4 threes per game and 2.1 steals per game throughout, let's say, a 70 to 72 game season. So I think those numbers are a bit bloated, so I think he'll finish worse. But you did highlight his floor, which is somewhere in the top 30, 35 maybe. And I think that's where it would be a good spot to take him for value.
Yeah, I mean, if he falls to the fourth round, I would take him without thinking about it. Third round, I would. I don't know, but fourth round, yeah, I would definitely take him. 17 last year was Rudy Gobert. This will be interesting. New point guard in town with Mike Conley. What do you think about him next season?
Around the same. I mean, I don't think Gobert's ever going to crack top, first round value, but he's going to be a second round mainstay as far as ADP and actual value provided. So as long as Gobert stays healthy, he's going to be a force on the blocks and boards categories for years to come.
I agree. I think he's very safe there. I would take him in the mid-second round without thinking twice about it. This guy, though, I've always avoided in all my drafts, and that's Andre Drummond at 18 last year. His percentages at the free throw line. Although Gobert is not a whole lot better, Drummond seems to just tank it completely. What are your thoughts on him this coming season?
Whew. Yeah, I've drafted Drummond only a couple of times, and in the handful of times I've drafted him, it was in 7-cat leagues where we don't play with percentages, so he's actually a stud there. But as far as the area that we're talking about, which is 9-cat, I think he will. I think he's actually going to stay the same. He's going to be a top 20 guy. Why? I'm sold. I think that the work ethic that he's putting in towards improving his success rate at the line is coming up with dividends, and he has steadily improved, to his credit, over the last couple of seasons, and I think he might do so again. And that's actually the only thing holding him back. Well, last season we saw a good improvement in blocks after a dip in 2017-18. So I think that this is his sweet spot, but this is also his ceiling.
Yeah, 59% last year from the line. By comparison, Gobert was 64. So not a whole lot different. In terms of volume, I think Gobert took about one more game. But I would not be surprised. You're right. He's working really hard on it. If Drummond could get to 65%, that wouldn't shock me. So perhaps he actually finishes above Gobert or right around there once again. Last year, 19 was an aberration on a per-game basis. His name was Jakar Sampson. You probably don't know him. That's because he only played 4 games, and that is why we are going to move on to number 20, Kemba Walker, now in Boston. Can he keep this up? He's no longer the only guy or the only option anymore. What do you think his value is going to be this year?
I think the gains will offset any losses that he may have. By that I mean, if there is a slight dip in scoring, it's going to be made up in better shot selection. I think that Walker adding to his rate of pick and rolls with the Celtics will improve his efficiency, which does bode well for his value. So that said, I think Walker's pretty much going to hold the same value.
Oh, that's interesting. I have him down slightly. I am worried about the sharing of the ball aspect. I agree with you. His percentage may go up, but I just worry that the points come down much more than people are banking
Fair enough.
on. Yeah.
That's fair, because you've got scorers in Cantor, Tatum, and Jaylen Brown who are all capable of putting up something like 16 to 18 points per game, and that's more mouths to feed. Yeah. So
We'll see. Yeah.
Walker, who's going to be feeding those mouths and improving to 6.5 assists per game from 5.9.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be very close. I think I would take him. I would not be worried if I took him at the end of the second round, but he's probably someone I might pass on. Last year on a per game basis, in a much different situation this year is Chris Paul, now with OKC as of this recording. That could change at any moment, although his contract might be too hard to move. Wow, 21st on a per game basis. Did not play all that many games, 58 last year. What do you think about this year, Eric?
Worse. It's sad that he got stuck in a team that's rebuilding, and he's one of those aging championship chasers. He's obviously not going to be able to do that with the Thunder. I don't know how motivated he's going to be there. It's a matter of that. I think he was helping will the Rockets to victory last season because, the hunger was there. But he's simply not going to be that hungry on a team that's pretty much tanking, considering all the draft picks that they have. So I'm not very optimistic that he'll finish with top 20 value. I think he's going to fall significantly.
Yeah, what round would he have to fall to before you drafted him?
Ooh, okay. I'm uh, I'm very biased. I don't think he's gonna play 60 games, so he gets penalized a lot as far as I'm concerned. He'll obviously be taken before the 5th round, but I'd prefer to take him after.
Wow. Okay, so you're probably won't going to own him anywhere.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a pass for me. Sorry, Chris, but
No, I think he'll get over it. I
yeah.
think he'll be okay. But this next player is someone who I'm very curious about because I really don't know where to rank him because of all the changes in his team makeup, and that is Drew Holiday at 22 last year. What do you? I'm nervous about him this year. I like him, but I'm nervous. What are your thoughts on Holiday?
I like him, and I think he's going to be better.
Oh wow!
I think
Okay.
yes. Okay. The Pelicans added talent. Most of the talent is young talent. So what are they going to do with this young talent? They're going to use this young talent to develop, and they're going to be developing by complementing their superstar, and that's Drew Holiday. And that's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to learn to play as a team. But yeah, you've got Zion Williamson, et cetera, et cetera. They're all young. And he's going to be their leader. He's going to lead by example. And the Pelicans fly as Holiday flies.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I just don't know how they're going to spread the minutes and how these guys are going to fit together. 22 seems like a ceiling to me for him. So, I mean, I would not. I mean, I could be wrong. He could get a little bit better. I don't know how much better he can get fantasy wise. I am probably going to stay away from him if he gets drafted in the 2nd round. Next player on the list, number 23, Clint Capella. He's got the new point guard in town. What are your thoughts on? Is he going to get a rebound this year, or is Russell Westbrook going to take them all?
Well, you pointed it out, buddy. I think Capella might take a hit in the rebounding category. He averaged 12.6 last season. We might see that probably slide down to maybe 11. Hopefully not 10, but that's a possibility given that he's got of all people Russell Westbrook sharing with him, jumping for those rebounds. So he'll take a hit there. But that said, I think that Capella could, improve on his blocks. I think if he stays away from fouls more this season, he's going to be a force on defense, and that's where he's gonna eke out his fantasy value from.
Yeah, I think he's pretty safe still at the end of the 2nd round. I'm worried about that percentage again at the line. 63%, almost identical to Gobert. So I tend to stay away from him, but I do like what he's going to do this year. I think Houston's going to play really hard, and I think he's going to get a lot of easy baskets, as he has in the past. Number 24, end of the 2nd round on a per-game basis, was LeBron James. Where do you think? The free throw was just killer last year, 66%, 7.5 per game. Everything else was solid. Aside from, of course, all the resting. Don't expect that this season. Do you expect LeBron to get better than the last pick in the 2nd round?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think off the top, there's in almost every league, you're going to have X amount of Laker fans. They're going to reach for him. I don't think he's going to last towards the end of the 2nd round, regardless of where you or I or Yahoo or anyone else values him. Fandom will play a role in his ADP, and it's going to be far earlier than this. But as to where I see him finishing, I think it's a possibility for him to finish with early 2nd round value. I think that he's going to play hard. I think he's going to do his best to be a 1-2 punch along with Anthony Davis and try to make it work. And he has really bought into the idea that the Lakers have a legitimate shot of competing, if not winning, this season. So there.
Yeah. I'm just really worried about those free throw percentages. Or percentage, I should say. I will probably stay away because he'll probably go too early for me. Well, that's 2 rounds in. I don't know if I have time for an entire third round. But
We can call it there. I think that was.
No. I kind of want to do a couple more here because these guys players are interesting. So
All right.
let's
I'll be halfway. Let's do top 30.
Yeah.
That was the 20.
Oh no, I was going to do 3 more. 3 more here. The top 3 of the third round, if that's okay with you.
All right. Fine.
Yeah. Because 30 is Klay Thompson, 29 is Horford. I think we kind of know those guys drop a bit, but maybe and Gallinari's in there as well. So 25 though. This one is interesting. LaMarcus Aldridge.
Worse. I'm concerned about the wear and tear.
Yeah.
He's another year older. I think that I'm just waiting for that pivot shoe to drop. I mean, at some point the Spurs are going to have to transition towards developing their younger talent more. I think we're going to see a lot less of Aldridge and DeRozan moving forward. I mean, they're obviously going to be faded very incrementally, but they're still going to be faded at some point as the younger guys see more minutes, and these guys will be needing more rest. So with Aldridge, who played a ridiculous 33 minutes per game, I think that should go down closer to 30 or maybe 28 to 30 range, and with that, his per game numbers going down.
Yeah, it's really hard to pick.
Top 50 though. I mean,
what's that?
Still a top 50 guy though. It's just that he's not top 25. I think a lot of Aldridge's value has it anchored on his efficiency, from his shooting efficiency from the field and the line, and that's and his low turnovers. All of those, are have been a factor in keeping his value afloat. It's just that when those counting stats take a dip, we're going to see those numbers go down.
Yeah, you're right. He'll get probably less attempts. He'll probably get fewer attempts, I should say. He'll probably get fewer free throw opportunities if he's playing fewer minutes. So all those might take a slight hit. I would probably take him in round 4 if he's still there. Third round, I'm probably not going to take him just yet. But this next one, I'm curious to see where you think. 26 on a per game basis, Miles Turner. Clearly someone who is not on the decline. Where do you think he ends up this year?
Somewhere around the same or a little bit better, if ever. Maybe play around with late second round value. But he is coming off a bounce back season. So I'm worried that it could be a peak and valley kind of pattern from the guy. So he is still young. He is still improving. I'd like to see him shoot more threes to be a more well-rounded stretch 5 kind of guy. But it's hard to argue with the guy who roughly led the league in blocks, if I'm not mistaken. So, and the fact that he led the league in that category while shooting roughly 74% from the line, there's very little, I can ask from him. So maybe seeing him score 15 points per game would be a nice bonus. So yeah, that's definitely an area I can see him improve. So from 26, maybe 24, 23, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he holds value or maybe gets slightly better. I don't think he'll get much worse. His percentages are too good. His blocking is too good. He's still a focal point of this team. Young player getting better. This team has a lot to prove. I think he'll play really hard. So, yeah, I love his outlook this year. All right, and the last one I do want to finish up with before they get a little bit less interesting to me is Mike Conley at 27. One of my favorite players in the league. A guy, I may root for him more than anybody else out there. Now with the Utah Jazz, does his stat set change? And if so, which direction?
Mike Conley is gonna get worse.
Worse. All right.
Yes, worse.
Okay. Yes.
All right. And this is taking a page out of my learnings from last season. Last season, or at least, sorry, a season or two ago, when Ricky Rubio joined the Jazz, I was excited. I thought Rubio was going to come into his own, leaving the shadow of the Timberwolves behind, et cetera, and bring the Jazz to a new era. All of that fantasy came crashing down on the sheer pace at which the Jazz play. The Jazz simply play too slow. Mike Conley is coming from a season where the Grizzlies were running more. They were not that grit and grind team. Obviously, Conley is used to this kind of grit and grind, but his numbers weren't this good then. So I think he's going to fall somewhere, closer to the top 35, top 40, maybe in top 50 value, because as with a slower pace, it's not, his numbers aren't going to be as exciting, and he's not, going to keep this up. I think that was, I think there was a peak for Conley actually, and it also doesn't help that he's still effectively an injury-prone player who I'd rather stay away from actually.
Yeah, he does have that history. The 21 points last year, like you said, with pace and all the other scoring around him will come down. I don't see his percentages getting that much better with the fewer shot attempts. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think he's probably more fourth-round value. Best case this year. And that is it. We're going to wrap up there. The top 27 of a nice round number to end on. Eric, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, that was, I just have to share that was a very fun exercise. I'm glad and very appreciative that you have me on for the show. It was a good game to play, and I think it's a good idea for us to be able to share our insight on guys who were the top 30-ish players from last season on a per game basis, and without throwing out any real spoilers, give our 2 cents on the change in the top echelon of fantasy value in the NBA.
Yeah, and if you want to read about, is it 400 players on the draft guide, which comes out on Friday?
Yeah.
400 players, team analysis. I believe it's $13.99. You can find it at hoop-ball.com. 12:01 Pacific time, Friday morning, middle of the night, Thursday night. And that includes the B150. And I believe this price is only through Sunday, and then it increases as we get closer to fantasy season. Eric, you're at Fantasy Hoopla, which is a little confusing because it kind of throws me off. There's a P in there, right? It's not Hoopla because we're hoop ball, but you are Fantasy HOOPLA. Is that correct on Twitter?
Yep,
and
that's correct.
Yeah, so give him a follow. He'll answer any questions you have on any of these players we talked about or any other players you have thoughts about. I know you're always willing to share your insight on anyone to Twitter, which is so gracious of you because I know you're very busy this time of year. And then you can follow me on Twitter at @BallWithNeil. Again, we are sponsored by Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. Please check out their coffee products at hawaiianisles.com or on amazon.com. And that is going to do it for Fantasy NBA today for August 22nd, 2019. Tomorrow, Adrian and Coach will be back with, I believe, some more draft analysis, maybe some rookie analysis. And then Dan Bespris will be back on Monday. We'll talk to you guys then.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.